All right, so good afternoon, or good morning, I guess we should say. My name is Doug Blake, senior partner here at Senior Life Insurance Company. I have the privilege and pleasure, right, of getting a chance to speak to Mr. Frank here. How you doing, Frank?
Hey man, I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming, man. I know that your department and what you guys do behind the scenes is so vitally important to Senior Life. I just really thought it was time that everybody kind of understands and knows the purpose of it all, and how important it really is. So before we really get into that, Frank, would you mind just kind of letting us know a little bit about yourself and your background and how long you've been at Senior Life and things of that nature?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started with Senior Life in January of 2016. Here, I started off in market compliance, actually working for Dawn Keister, who is actually here with us this morning in case we have some questions that involve market compliance related topics. And so that kind of gave me my introduction to insurance. My background was not in insurance. My background was in internal audit. I spent about 12 years with the Florida Supreme Court, and then I spent 3.5 years with the Department of Transportation's Inspector General's office. And so basically, those are very transferable skills when you are looking at process improvement type stuff. And so I was able to get on board with Senior Life in 16, begin learning the business. And I've been extremely fortunate to have the opportunity to help grow some departments. And it's just been a great opportunity all around, great experience.
Yeah. And what is your role here now currently at Senior Life?
So historically, I've been director of quality assurance, but we've been doing some reorg this year, and right now I think my title is director of customer service and business retention. But I also work very closely with agent support and underwriting, and so it's just kind of jack of all trades, I guess.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
we're a tight knit team over there, so we all work very well together, and there's a lot of sort of cross pollination as to what we do.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the departments seem to kind of crisscross and overlap in certain directions in certain ways a lot of the times, no?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're all one big team in operations. Even if we have a customer service department, licensing department, leads department, payments team, Spanish team, underwriting, agent support, we're really all just one big team. And our objective is to continue to further the growth of Senior Life and to support our agents and to make sure that our policyholders are taken care of and really to facilitate retention, which I think is what we're really going to be focusing on mostly this morning. Just making sure that we keep business on the books so that our agents enjoy renewals for many years to come on the business that they've worked hard to write. And of course, we also want to make sure that everything is meeting regulations and underwriting guidelines. And so that's also a part of it. But ultimately, it's all about retaining good business.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I never quite understood how important that was until, I mean, I always knew, obviously, people's renewals are always tied to the amount of business that stays on the books. And even the last company that I was working at before I came to Senior Life, we always talked about these persistency numbers. And I just like, it's something, but like we were so focused on writing new business that like it was a thing, but it wasn't a thing. Like, and it really hit home to me probably back around the time that I first had met you, and I would say that it was a huge, huge blessing in disguise for me because what a lot of people don't realize is you saved my butt. I just didn't know it at the time, and I was almost, fighting some of the things that were put into place. And then looking back now and kind of in the moment after, I started to understand it, man, thank God that you were able to put in some checks and balances because, I mean, at the end of the day, you saved myself and Senior Life a ton of money, by catching some of these things, and I think a lot of agents sometimes they look at a retention department or a compliance department as somebody that's out to get them when it's the total opposite of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's 100% true. I'll talk about the elephant in the room, the fact that Senior Life does reach out to a sample of policyholders on new business to conduct welcome calls.
Yeah.
And that's really what they are. They're welcome calls. And the whole purpose of that is retention. The idea is that up until that point, the policyholder's primary point of contact has been the writing agent. But the reality is that once that policy issues, it's going to be serviced by someone in operations at Senior Life. And so the earlier that we can speak with someone, introduce ourselves, welcome them to the Senior Life family, answer questions that they might have, make sure that any changes that they might want to make before policy issues are made so that the final product that they receive is exactly what they expect. All of those things get to preserving business. We're about forging relationships. And so the work that the retention reps do, at least there's a lot of work they do. First of all, I want to say that, but this aspect of their role, the welcome calls, I know that a lot of agents have mixed feelings about it. But the reality is that, and we don't always share all of this, and maybe we should do a better job of it. But the reality is that through those calls, we make tons and tons of corrections. And some of those corrections, had they not been made before a policy issue, could result in a person canceling the policy and generating debt for an agent, right? And so the sooner that we can discover things and correct them, the better. And I think it also shows our policyholders that we're a conscientious company and that it matters to us to not only reach out and let them know who we are and what our values are. And frankly, you can kind of see behind me a little bit here. I'm going to turn my camera that our core values are actually listed on our training room wall. So, these things are the fundamental concepts. This is the foundation of Senior Life right here. And so what we're doing is really about expressing that to the people that are, we're going to service moving forward. And, one of the things that we see is that there are certain common errors, especially from new agents coming in the door that may not be as familiar with our platform. Just simple things like inadvertently missing the gender selection, and of course with gender, that actually has an impact on the premium. And so, it's one thing to inadvertently call a female client a male client, because the correction for that is going to give them more coverage for the premium that was quoted. But when it's in reverse, when a male is inadvertently categorized as a female, the premium is artificially low. And so it's going to affect their coverage level in the opposite direction. And that can have the effect of causing someone to question the process and ultimately cancel the business. And so this group of people making these corrections are very educated on the plans, the products, and also on how to communicate with these policyholders to make sure that we are doing everything we can to preserve it when we do have to correct something.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I don't know how somebody could look at it as a bad thing when we're calling a customer up and welcoming them and making sure that everything on the application is correct and things of that nature. And, what kind of brings me to one of my questions is like some common reasons why somebody would cancel a piece of business before it issues or even after, whenever it is. And in your opinion, would you say that a lot of the things that you catch would prevent these types of things from happening? Because when they get the policy and they thought it was this, but it's really that, or the names are spelled correctly, date of births are wrong, genders are wrong, and stuff like this. And by having these things in place is going to, again, preserve a lot of business. But then a lot of people look at this as like as if we're trying to, come up with ways to stop the business from issuing. You know what I mean? And I'm saying this because just as, a lot of agents, they just don't understand the long-term purpose here. It's a lot in the, advance. I just want to get paid and, this other thing. And they don't really understand how important it is to keep this stuff on the books and to prevent
You
problems from happening.
know, one of the one of the things about our particular demographic, we're working with an older demographic, right? I mean, our sweet spot in terms of age is 55 to 85.
Hmm.
Now, we, of course, have clients that are younger than that, but the reality is that we're working with a fixed income group typically. So we're working with people that are extremely conscientious about how they choose to spend their money. And they have expectations on the type of product that they're going to get for their money. And there are so many generational differences that drive expectations of consumers, right? Like we have to be sensitive to the fact that I've got a lot of young people here, people
Right.
in their 20s, and they're going to be communicating with people that are their grandparents' age.
Right.
And it requires a sensitivity and an understanding that different generations have different expectations about how things work.
Right.
The reason I say that is because things that you would think, well, that's a silly reason to cancel a policy. A lot of people are very invested in simply, if you can't spell my family's name correctly in the
Yeah.
beneficiaries
Yeah.
list, or if you weren't paying enough attention to correctly document my date of birth, then maybe this isn't the right company for me. And so these things really do have the effect of causing people to cancel. And what happens is, we issue the policy. Of course, there's always a 20-day free look period. And during that period, if someone reviews an application and they see errors right off the bat, it immediately forms their perception of who we are as a company.
Right.
And oftentimes that's enough to cause them to say, no, not for me.
Yeah.
So what the retention group does really does catch a ton of this stuff. We don't advertise it. We just simply correct it, get the business issued, and move on. But I think it is important that agents know that that's a big part of what this group does. And furthermore, I think in just a bigger sense, it's important that agents understand that we're on their team.
Yeah.
We're
There's no
here
doubt.
to
And
support them. We're not
I
here to
think
pull
if
it
you
down.
guys were to advertise that more, and people really, really understand what you and your department is trying to accomplish, I think agents would really understand the importance of all this a little bit better.
It's about longevity of business, period.
Yeah.
You said something earlier that I know to be true. I mean, coming in the door especially, advances are sort of where everybody's head is at, right? New business, advances. But, when you really break it down, Doug, and this especially, advances may pay the very next upcoming bill, right?
Yeah.
An advance may cover the car payment or utilities, and that's important, of course.
Right.
But it's the month end, it's the back end book of business that helps people build wealth. That's actually where wealth is built.
I mean, that built
And
Senior
so,
Life Insurance Company.
yeah, well, and I was going to say that, just to give an example, those who have actually visited the Senior Life building, I mean, it's really a standout in our community, and I would say anywhere, but it really in our small community is unique and beautiful. And this building was built on the renewals of business that Ron and Dale Powell wrote when they were running one of the biggest agencies in the country. And it was all about for them, not just writing the business, but properly, to use the term, salting it down, making sure that the customer understood what they were getting, so that the probability would be increased that it would stay on the books. They wouldn't get something in their policy that surprised them, because surprises are not always a good thing.
Yeah.
So
Anybody can get someone to say yes. You know what I mean? But it's getting them to understand what they're really doing and what they purchase. Because when you're sitting down with somebody face to face or talking to them on the telephone, and I mean, it's an emotional sale. I mean, we're talking about the day that you die and how much of a burden that you're going to leave behind, and I think when people buy things emotionally and they don't have, that rationality of what they're actually getting themselves involved with and really understanding it, they're going to cancel when that emotion wears off, and it's so important to get them to truly understand. I remember that, back in the day when we were taught and how to properly salt down the sale was to, I'd say, hey, Frank, now what I want you to do is explain to me what you purchased here today, and almost have them regurgitate, the senior life policy, due dates, premiums, face amounts, talk about legacy assurance a little bit, and, have them regurgitate everything that we discussed, because if they can't, then my job's not done as an agent.
Yeah, 100%. I watched your 8 steps to improving persistency video, and I would encourage all of your agents to watch that if they haven't already, because, a lot of what we're talking about right now is really addressed in that, the importance of making sure that someone understands what it is that they're purchasing. One of the things that Dale Powell used to talk about was, mostly he and Ron were doing, well, almost entirely doing field sales. And, of course, they talked about collecting a check, a live check at the time of sale, because I think that just represents a more solid commitment from the client.
Right.
And one of the things that Dale always talked about is that the last thing he would do is turn around and say, now, if you don't understand, or if you're not 100% invested in what we've talked about, I'm just going to go ahead and give you this check back.
Yeah, I remember him saying that, dude, and I was like, no way. There's no way that you're sitting and you offered to hand the check back. I said, you're crazy.
Yeah, but look at the outcome of that, right?
Yeah.
Because you're right. There are a lot of people who are, maybe they're new to the insurance business or just new to the sales business, and they're somewhat uncomfortable with the process, and so they're quick to get to the bottom line, right? They're quick to get to the signature, and in doing that, sometimes I think that things are maybe gleaned over that should have gotten more attention during the presentation. And so, but by doing that, by taking that extra couple of minutes at the end of the sale to make sure that the client understands what they've just invested in, essentially, I think you really are solidifying the longevity of that business. And you can see that in real world outcomes through the fact that Ron and Dale were able to build this building essentially from their renewals. So that business is still on the books, much of it.
Yeah, they still get paid from
so
it.
that's just it's amazing.
It's crazy.
So
That's
absolutely,
why I got my insurance license, was for that renewals. So you weren't only as good as your last paycheck, but I hope a lot of agents also understand that the reason that we pay renewals is because the job doesn't end point of sale.
100%. Yeah. There's a lot of work to do. This is a business, and a business requires follow through, follow up. You have to maintain a relationship with your customers, And so some of the things that you touched on in your video are so critical. Following up on missed payments is one of the things that you've got to do. You've just got to do.
You know what I learned too, Frank, is like you can hire someone to do it for you, but they don't want to hear from someone. They want to hear from you, the agent, because that's who built the relationship with them. Now you can get someone and they can help you out, but they want to talk to you.
Yeah, you're the one that built the connection, and so and if you sometimes if you have a third party reach out to them, they see it as maybe I'm not important enough for you to talk to now that I've signed something.
I mean, I'm sure it's not going to hurt, but it's definitely not going to help as far as comparing you, the agent, to a third party calling them up or stopping by their home and checking on them and seeing what. And a lot of these people don't even know that they missed a payment, which is a whole nother conversation. They're not, I don't know what it is, but like most of the people that I've ever called over my career on missed payments, they were like, oh my God, I didn't know. And a lot of times when they find out is that they're already behind 3 and 4 and 5 months, they can't catch up at that point. Not on a fixed payment, and it makes it tough for them.
I think the reality is that probably only a small percentage of consumers actively manage their bank accounts on a regular basis, And so oftentimes these things will go missed for a month, and before you know it, you're at the end of your grace period. And now you're technically
your checkbook like we did back in the day. Had the ledger, Like my mother still does it to this day. I see her, she, and checks it off when the check clears and the whole nine, not many people do that anymore. They just look and
Yeah,
there's
that's
my
an
balance.
old
Oh,
school
okay.
approach.
But
Yeah, for sure. And so it just makes the agent's role more critical, and we do send out notifications to agents when there are missed payments. We try to inform our agents as best we can about things that can negatively affect their business. Of course, we also do our due diligence on our end to try to take care of that when we can. But that's a huge book of business, and we just have to have the agents involved in the process. And
yeah.
another thing that you talked about, by the way, that I thought was really important is the follow up that you do. Not because there's a missed payment, not because a client called in and thought that. That maybe they don't want the coverage, but really just the thank you note, the handwritten thank you note, reaching out before the second premium is drafted, and make sure that the client understands that's coming. People forget. I
Yeah.
mean,
And you know what
it's
too that I've
simple as
I've
that.
learned, and I used to feel this way, and I'm sure a lot of agents do, but if you're scared to call your customer, there's a problem. Like if that one phone call of
Yeah.
welcoming them to the company, or that one phone call to remind them of their second premium payment to make sure that they receive their policy and all that, if you're not willing to do that because you think that that might cause them to cancel or something like that, and there's a deeper rooted issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some self reflection that people kind of need to do if they're nervous about someone talking to a client that they
Yeah.
wrote. I
I
mean,
mean, I have
that
customers that
should
call
never
me
be the case.
nowadays, and they want to increase because I serviced them, years and years ago. And I tried giving that lead to like one of my agents to take care of, and guess what? They're like, Doug, I don't
No.
want Frank to come visit me. I called you, like you're my guy. You know what I mean? And that's all due respect to that agent, but like they don't want to deal with them. That's where the relationship is, and we forget that. But when you
100%.
treat somebody like you're so coddling to them, right? When you're making that sale and you're promising the world, and you make the sale, and all those promises and all those good thoughts and good feelings goes out the window when you treat them like a one night stand and they feel used.
Yeah. And so I think I would relate it to this. How certain agents will call in to home office, and they'll develop a relationship with one of our representatives. And that's the person that they really like to talk with. They're comfortable with them. They built a relationship with them. They trust them. They know this person is reliable. Well, the customers feel the same way, and so, if you as an agent have that kind of feeling about a representative here, I know I've got plenty of agents that will call in specifically to talk to me, and so does Bobby Lamon, and so does
Nobody
Jonathan
calls you.
Ross.
Come on. Jeez.
They do. They actually call me now. But it's because hopefully I've provided a level of service
Yeah.
that gives them confidence in what we do. And if that's what you've done for your customer, they're going to want to hear from you periodically.
Yeah. No
So this
doubt.
idea of reaching out, keeping birthdays in mind, stuff like that. The most successful agents in this company, the ones that have been just killing it year after year after year, are the ones that put as much focus on the back end work as they do on getting that signature on an application.
That's right. That's right. So, Frank, talk to me a little bit about premiums. I've learned years ago that the most persistent business falls between that $55 and $85 per month range. Payments that are a little bit less sometimes, they just don't hold as much value because maybe the face amount's a little bit smaller, and it is what it is. But the more expensive ones, the 100, the 200s and stuff like that, we all know why they lapse and things like that. And it's exciting when you go get a household limit and you write a deal, and the same day you get $1,500 deposited in your account from Senior Life, and that's all a great feeling. But man, it doesn't take many of those to eat up an entire month's pay through, to where you get nothing. or are carrying over a negative. How important is that price point of, to a customer? I think a lot of people don't even understand that there's a reason why Slice comes up with those three options, and why the face amounts are a little bit funky sometimes. Or like, why is it like 3,500? And it's because it's falling within that range of premium that's the most persistent. You know,
Correct.
how can an agent not get all caught up in that and keep it in that range, if that makes sense? What I'm trying to ask you, like, what are some
Well,
things that
again,
because you
I
understand
think you
you're
have to refocus. I
yeah.
think you have to refocus. I think you have to take focus off of an advance. Again, I understand it. I get it. And I'm empathetic too, because I'm a salaried employee. So I know I get a paycheck every Friday, and there's just, comfort that comes with that.
Hmm.
And I understand that agents are working basically every opportunity is another potential paycheck, and I get it. But I think you've got to refocus your priority on, it's not about how much you earn up front. It's about how long you are earning on that business, and everyone has the potential, just by spending sometimes no more than an extra 10 minutes with a customer, has the potential to create a book of business that lasts years and years and years. And our company pays renewals, basically to infinity, essentially,
Right. Yeah.
and it's about refocusing what's important. Advances are certainly important, but what's really important is building a relationship with the client, so that they stay, and they generate referrals, obviously, as well. But ultimately, you have to be sensitive to the fact that our demographic are mostly on fixed income. So you have to look at it like this. You have to be observant, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing field sales and you're in someone's home, you can tell very quickly what standard of living they have, right?
Right.
And if they're living month to month very close, you're not doing anyone any favors by writing them a 3-digit premium.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's
When it's a
not
third
helping
of
them.
their SSI or
They can't
something,
sustain
you
it.
know?
Yeah, they just can't sustain it. You've got to be practical in the way that you approach it. And frankly, and this will be controversial to say, I guess, but it's not about you, it's about them.
No doubt.
And you have to keep that in mind. It's about your customer. If you have your customers' interests in mind, I think you're just going to be on the right path to not only retention, but also to continuing to kind of reap the reward when they have family members that need coverage. They're going to immediately think of you.
Right. So I remember, like, if
Um,
you, like, when you speak to people and you're trying to help somebody, if you're coming from a place of service as opposed to a place from greed and wanting to make an advance or something like that, I think a lot of these little issues as it relates to retention would be eliminated if that was true. And that's really what you were doing. Because if you're going to, are you going to sit down with your mother or father, say, or grandma or grandpa, and put them in a plan for $250 a month? And you're going to walk away and you're going to be like, okay, that's good for them. Now there's a lot of people that have those premiums. I get it, and they pay them every single day, but you got to be mindful of all that. Like, I'm gonna say, you got to, like, present with emotion, but that logic has to be there in the close, if that makes
well,
sense.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does. You've got to be mindful and sensitive to the situation that your client is in. Um, and I mean, keep in mind, when you're in that sweet spot between, well, typically no more than $85 a month, you're at a price point where if a client does have something come up, a financial emergency, they're going to rationalize holding on to that coverage because they recognize the value it represents in the long run.
Yeah.
But once you get to a certain threshold, all of a sudden, that's going to be the first thing that's eliminated when there's a struggle,
Yeah. Even if they don't
And
realize something, like, oh, gas prices went up, even if they don't drive a lot, they're going to get worried and they're going to start cutting things. And the first thing they're going to cut is that $150, $200 a month insurance premium.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and
So,
it's just the reality of it. you know?
Well, I think you also have to keep in mind that considering that we work closely with Legacy Assurance, they're providing a set of services that add value to our policies and will make a smaller policy go
A lot
probably three or
further.
four thousand dollars further
No doubt.
than face value implies, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
And so you have that at your disposal to offer that will save, you know, that money and allow that person to have a $7,000 plan instead of a 15, maybe,
Yeah.
or a
No,
12.
which is much more affordable for sure.
Yeah. So affordability is something that you do have to consider, you know?
Right. Yeah, for sure. So I know you have Dawn there with you, and I'd hate to have her just sit there and watch you talk all the time because I have a feeling she probably does that a lot, and
She
just
is,
talk.
she is sick of hearing it. She probably has AirPods in right now listening to music.
Yeah. But, if you don't mind bringing her in just for a second, and I really like to see, because she sees the side of the business, that a lot of people don't really get to kind of see. What are maybe some things that she sees that we can do to, I don't know, to do better? I mean, nobody wants an email from your department, Dawn. Nobody does, but they happen, but from time to time. But what are some things that you see that we can do as agents to ensure that everything is just, it's all good?
Honestly, a lot of it really kind of piggybacks off what y'all were talking about.
Yeah.
A lot of the complaints that we get are uh, that they've tried to reach the agent and the agent won't call them back. We get that a lot.
Isn't that crazy,
Yesterday,
though? Like, go ahead, Frank.
Yesterday, I talked with a client who had that complaint, and I meant to bring it up earlier, and this is such a good point. You know, if you give a client a business card that has your personal number on it, and they have questions, but they can't reach you and you don't call them back, why would they stay with this company?
Yeah,
You know?
for sure.
Yep, so we get that a lot. Wrong information on the application, they get it and they feel like it's invalid or it's fraud or
Right.
it's not going to pay their family because this isn't correct. I mean, we get a lot of the same stuff.
Right.
Say we also get complaints on the limited benefit plans where people say that they did not understand or were not explained that that's what they were getting.
Yeah, that's a great point, I think. So I'm not saying so many people, but I'm sure there's people out there that just don't really take the time to get people to really truly understand that. That's really important. And you can speed read that on the recording to where they don't even really hear you, probably. You know what I mean? But you got to take time to get people to understand that. They got to know what they're getting themselves involved in.
Yeah, it's important to keep in mind that they're going to get a copy of their application along with their policy, you know, and so they have the ability to review all this documentation right after the policy is issued. And if something is there that they don't expect or that wasn't explained to them, again, it affects their confidence in our credibility, you know.
Right. So I would like to maybe set a little bit of fear in these agents. I'm only kidding. But, I do want to say this is on a home office standpoint. Is it safe to say that y'all see a lot more than an agent would think? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let me say this: we also smooth over a lot more. We also, as an operations team, we also resolve a lot of these problems without going back to the agent. You know, and that's the service that we're providing through retention, through customer service, through agent support, through market compliance. We're correcting these things. We are explaining and hopefully doing a very good job of answering concerns that a client might have to try to overcome when that does happen.
Yeah.
So a lot of times agents never hear about it, you know. And again, it'd be great to advertise all that, but we've got a ton of business coming through the door, and so a lot of times it's a fast-paced situation. Now we do notify agents when we save business. Like when a client calls in to cancel a policy, everyone in operations is trained on the kinds of things that they can discuss that will help preserve that business. You know, whether it is recommending reducing a face value to make a premium more manageable, whether it is just reminding them of the value associated with legacy, whether it is kind of talking back to the beginning of the process about what it was that kind of inspired and motivated them to reach out to want this kind of insurance to begin with, you know, focusing on their family and their beneficiaries. So we're all trained to do that, and we do it daily, and we have saved, good grief, so many thousands of annualized premium in business just through the simple phone call and doing the footwork to prevent someone from canceling.
Yeah. And Dawn, when someone receives an email from your department, like, I want people to understand and know that that's not always a bad thing. Like, you need to know, in my opinion, right? Like, what happened so you can relay it back to the customer or whatever. Like, doesn't mean because you get an email from your department that you're a crook and a criminal. Just means that there's some questions, no? I mean, does that make sense?
Yes. It doesn't always mean that we're trying to get somebody in trouble.
Right.
Sometimes people contact us because they're confused, they don't understand, they don't remember doing the application, which to me is odd if they're talking to somebody. But, you know, again, these are
It happens.
elder people.
Yeah.
We get complaints from, you know, children who didn't know the parents signed up, um, all kinds of things. And a lot of the time we just need to gather the information so that we have both sides of the story and we can kind of navigate through what happened and explain to
I mean, you got to document it.
the
If
other
you're
party
getting,
kind of what
especially a
happened.
written complaint from somebody, whether it's a you know, a policyholder or whomever it may be, like, you got to document it. We got to do the right thing. We have to get the information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that something happened that didn't. Sometimes
Of
the
course.
departments of insurance request them. Sometimes we try really hard to look into and contact and talk to and fix problems before they go
And just get
to
ahead of it.
departments of insurance. But it doesn't
Yeah.
always
Because I
happen.
think it just really all still circles back to that retention, whether it's either of both of your departments. I mean, we all still have the same goal in mind, right? Which is to
Well,
keep more business on the books.
let me make a point kind of along the lines of what Dawn is talking about. You know, one of the things that I'm sure our agents are aware of, but our consumers are often not aware of, is the importance of the roles in a policy. You know, you've got an insured, you've got a payer, you've got a policy owner, and then you've got beneficiaries, right? Um, as a carrier, we have to observe privacy standards. And so we can't just disclose information on policies to any party associated with an application. We work with the policy owners,
Yeah.
and we obviously can discuss payment issues with a payer, but that really is kind of the extent of what we can do with a payer. And so I bring this up to point out that it's really important that the agent understands who to designate in those roles. You know, make the owner the person that's going to be managing that policy.
Yeah.
Make the
Such a
owner
good
the
point,
person that is
Francis.
competent to be able to call in or can receive calls or whatever the case is.
Payer too.
And then the payer too. Yeah, exactly. Because that is a critical part of how we operate in terms of observing insurance regulations and properly observing privacy considerations for our clients. You know, and I think a lot of times, like, we get applications in where a minor is the owner, right? Well, we can't do anything with that.
Yeah.
And it creates a big dilemma, because then we have to go through a process to make those changes, and that can be, you know, that can be a hassle for a client. Although we do try to streamline those things, still it means that we have to go back and basically rework aspects of the policy. And so, you know, having those things laid out properly at the beginning is an important aspect of what the agent is doing
Yeah.
at the time of app.
So understanding what all those roles means is really important, because I've been in situations with some other agents to where the insured was not the owner and that insurer was trying to, make some changes on the policy, and guess what? We couldn't do anything for them. And they were the
Or the
payer.
beneficiary.
So imagine being the insured of a policyholder of a policy, the payer of the policy, but not the owner, and you really can't do much unless it relates to the payment of the plan. You can't cancel it. You can't make changes to beneficiaries. You can't change ownership. You can't hardly do nothing, and that's an extremely frustrating place to be in. But like you said, for privacy reasons, we're just following the rules that other people set out in all the different states that we conduct business in.
Yeah, so just if an agent has that in mind, I think maybe it'll cause them to pay a little more attention to how they're structuring those roles, so that we've got the right people in the right spots on the policy.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, it's just, if someone has Alzheimer's or dementia, probably not a good idea to make them the owner of their own policy, or if it's a minor.
Exactly.
So when it's obvious, it's gotta be some common sense in there too, But that's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
It's about being observant again,
Yeah.
being observant to who is going to really be able to manage the policy.
Yeah. So what are some other things that either you, Dawn, or Frank, that you see that, as an agent, that we could do a little bit of a better job at outside of what we kind of already discussed?
Outside of that, well, I mean, again, I think that you laid out some really great points in your persistency video. I mean, just the things that we've already talked about, it really all comes down to building a relationship, I mean, that's really it. If you ever, there are agents that write a lot of business, and they'll probably say, well, it's almost unmanageable. How can I have a relationship when my book of business is this size? And I think that comes down to routines. Humans tend to do better when they have routines. And so, like, structuring your work week where you already build in time to do certain retention activities for yourself, and maybe encouraging that with your team. Just structuring your week so that you're not solely focused on sales, and sales are critical. I am in no way, trying to, underscore that, but I just think that maybe coming up with a business model that incorporates all of these activities, so that a part of Monday is about checking missed payments and doing follow-up work, maybe in whatever day works best. I know every agency is a little different in how they structure these things, but kind of building these things in to your routine. And you know what they say, after you've kind of done something for typically 28 to 30 times consecutively, that routine kind of becomes second nature, right? So it only takes about a month for that to really kind of become ingrained in how you do business. And I think that there's a dividend that'll come with that that's very, very positive.
Yeah. And to your point too, there's an agent, I probably shouldn't mention any names, it probably wouldn't be a big deal, but there's an agent that lives in Texas. He doesn't speak any English. I think you know exactly who I'm speaking about. And for many, many years, he led our company in most production written. And the numbers that he put up is pretty ridiculous in a good way. I don't think that you guys, to my knowledge, have ever had a problem with his business in any way, shape, form, or fashion, nor his persistency. So I don't necessarily agree with, well, my book of business is too big, I can't keep up with it, because if this 60-some-odd-year-old man can do it, I think everybody can figure out a way. If they put and allocate the proper amount of time consistently into this, they'll be just fine.
Well, he's exceptional, but I think that we should all strive to be exceptional. I mean, we've all got to have a goal out there. We've all got to have something to look up to strive for, and that particular individual has certainly set an example in terms of how he's written business. His business has longevity. And he's enjoying that when month end comes around, and I get to see those things. I get to see those kind of month-end checks that are going out, and again, just kind of tie back around. That's really what it's all about. It's about building a book of business. It's not about earning an advance that is going to generate debt next week because it wasn't properly sold.
See a young lady that works out of, well, not out of the home office anymore, but lives in Thomasville, Georgia. Leads the company in new production most all the time, and I forget what it was, but it was years ago when we did a little analysis, and it might even be before you were here, Frank, maybe, I'm not sure, but it was, say, if the company did 100 reinstatements last month, right? She did like 95 of them or something crazy like that.
I was on the phone with her this morning, and I talked to her probably once a day, and sometimes multiple times a day. And
so $200,000 a year plus producer every year since she's been here.
Yeah.
So again, another example.
And she is her business model is all about follow up. Yeah. She's now, granted, she's a great salesperson, but it's not about being a great salesperson, really, because I mean that's just like this. Like, how do you define that? It's really just about being a sincere person that is interested in people and that wants to help people. And that really is, that comes across in her demeanor, in the way that she conducts business. So she is constantly calling in to check up on her book of business, and it is massive.
And I'll tell you what, every single one of those clients know her name.
Absolutely, they do. And they get her on the phone the first call. Because again, she looks at it in terms of the long-term success. She's not looking at the short run. She's not looking at how much am I going to earn this week. She's looking at what am I going to have when I retire.
Right.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I think she generally cares about her insurance.
She cares. I mean, it's about people. It's about helping people. And when you look at our values and our mission statement as a company, you'll see a phrase: we build leaders and we help people. That's what we want to do as a company. That's a major component of our philosophy as a business. And so I think if you kind of self-assess and you don't have that empathy, if you don't have that concern for the people that you're writing business for, I'm just not sure how successful you can be in the long run. I think that's got to be a major part of who you are as an agent, that you care. And the people that are most successful in our company, it's very obvious that they care.
Yeah. This has, been a really good conversation, I think, and I really hope people, take the time to listen to all the great points that both of you had made today. I really appreciate all your time today. Really, I know you guys are extremely busy doing your jobs, and you didn't have to take some time to talk to me and talk to our group and everybody else, and, I really appreciate you guys.
Well, listen, we appreciate you, Doug, and we love an opportunity to be able to reach out and to interact and to share what we've learned. I mean, that's what this is all about, We're a growing company, and so in many ways, we are, we'll always be in a mode of learning, no matter what. No matter how successful we get, it's all about learning, innovating, continuing to push the envelope. But we rely heavily on our agents to share with us ways that we can be better. We want to hear back. We want the feedback. And we are accessible as leaders to everyone out there. So I encourage people to reach out to us if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you just want to, if you're a new agent, you just want to get some pointers, or you want to talk to someone. I mean, I've done some pep talks, with agents that have come on board and have struggled a little bit in the beginning to get their footing. Just to kind of talk them through and remind them that it's a learning process, but you can do it. And not only can you do it, you can do it and achieve great success using the platform that we offer. And so we're very excited about what the future holds.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn is invested in creating a ton of new products that are going to be coming out. It's just going to give our agents more tools to be able to sustain business, and so things are looking
Can
up.
we
Things are
get a
looking
little
great.
insight as to what these new things are? A little sneak preview, or no? You guys don't like me that much.
I don't. I will have to defer to Dawn.
The products,
I'm just kidding. You don't have to tell me anything.
I mean, I'll tell you. We've got a cancer plan that's going to have a return of premium benefit in it, be a lump sum cancer. I've got two new term products coming that will provide coverage to age 90, and the other one will provide coverage to age 100 under a term.
Wow.
Um, and I've also got a new accidental death and dismemberment coming, which provides some cool extra benefits, including it will help pay for the cost to transport remains if they pass away not in their home.
Is that a rider or like a standalone?
Actually, it's both.
Oh, cool.
So you can either add it to what they have or write it by itself.
Just when
So
you
it's
thought
got
it was
some cool
gonna
stuff
get
in there
into
too.
that. That's phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for working on that stuff, Don. That's really cool. I mean, that's some. Every one of those bullets was pretty big.
Just doing a couple things.
Couple things, no big deal. Changing the world, one product at a time.
She's able to do all that and manage a toddler and me, which is basically just a larger size toddler.
Yeah, and that's probably her
Maybe
most
worse.
difficult job on a daily basis is, you.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, guys, we'll wrap up here. I really appreciate you taking some time. I'll have agents, after they watch this video, maybe to shoot me over some emails if they have any questions, and I'd appreciate if you guys can maybe help us out with them if I'm unable to answer some of them. But, it's definitely been argued by a lot of people that the Blake group is the right group, and I wanted to see how you guys felt about that, and are we your favorite?
I've heard these rumors myself. Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say.
Some people's cubicles at home office, and it's on a sticky note. Big bright pink sticky note. The Blake group is the right group. Like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And here's the thing. Without burning any bridges to any other groups, I will say that I really enjoy working with your team. We love when you guys visit. There's so much enthusiasm, so much energy. And I'll say this to your team. You guys as a team have an amazing leader in Doug. Doug is a unique, he is a unique RVP to me in just how, not only how accessible he is and how much he does to try to provide resources and tools to help people build their businesses. But man, you always have open ears and you always give us great suggestions. And so we very much appreciate you and your whole team. And we look forward to seeing you guys.
Yeah, we do too, man. And just for all those that are listening, if you haven't yet got the Frank Funderburg office tour, you haven't lived yet. That is, I will never forget that day that it was years ago. And the crazy thing too is, like, you were only here like a year maybe, and you took me, it was like I don't know, like a professional tour guide at a museum, and he was pointing out and dictating everything about the Powell's history. I'm like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing in the world. I wish I could recruit like this. It was such a cool experience.
Well, that's awesome. I'm really glad that was a good experience. I always enjoy doing that because it gives me a chance to actually meet and get to know our agents. And to me, that's one of the most awesome things. And I'm really encouraged that we're now able to do more conferences, kind of getting on the other side of this whole coronavirus issue, so that we're able to get together again. Because I think that when representatives meet agents and agents meet representatives, and we're able to kind of look one another in the eyes, I think that it solidifies the fact that we're just on the same team. We're all here to help one another succeed.
When I first came to the home office and I got to meet the licensing department and meet the new business department and meet the lead department and meet all the people that were pulling all the levers and making all the things happen. I mean, that's a really cool thing. And what was even cooler is to find out that everybody is just such good people. Because I've been to other companies' home offices before, and they're so snooty. Like, forget you. I could never, ever in a million years have an opportunity to talk to someone in your position, or a Robert Shiver, or an Eric Mitchell, or anybody like that. Like, they're in offices with the doors locked, and you're not getting in there unless you have an appointment. And to be able to come to a company like Senior Life and open door policy, basically. I mean, it's really, really refreshing. I mean, it's a great experience that first time.
You're really hammering home why Senior Life is setting record after record in terms of not only new production, but recruiting as well, because everyone here is accessible. It's cool to me. One of the things that really solidified my decision to come to this company, and is one of the reasons that I have stayed here, aside from Dawn, of course,
Mm-hmm.
is that I can walk into the president's office. I can walk into the executive vice president's office. I can walk into any of the senior vice president's offices, and they're going to give me their time. We're going to discuss issues. They're going to give me direct and valuable feedback. And we all work together like just one big team. The hierarchy isn't something that we focus too much on. Everyone is here and accessible to everyone else, and that's just awesome.
I mean, even outside of the office, they're the same people that are inside the office. It's not like people change when they walk through those front doors of Senior Life. Like, we're all just good people with the same goal and the same vision in mind.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited. We're just excited about continuing to build on this.
Sweet. Well, I really appreciate you guys again, both of you joining me. I know you guys are busy, so thank you so much. I know we went a little bit longer than we thought, but I think we had a lot of very, very good points here, and I really hope that these agents can really take some of these key things we went over, adapt them into their daily, and make it happen.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Well, thank you again for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.